Welcome to How I Made It Through. This is Bernadette Thompson. And today I have the privilege of being able to interview Holly Porter. And Holly is a serial entrepreneur, a retreat strategist, and founder of Retreat R&R, a 15 times best-selling author and an award-winning speaker. This brings She brings decades of experience in events and real estate and personal transformation. Holly empowers leaders to create impact through retreats and to lead with purpose, presence, and passion. And one of the other things that Holly has experienced in her lifetime is she has also had a near-death experience. And so we recently met, and I was fascinated not only with Holly's background, but also with this connection of spiritually transformative experiences, Holly's near-death experience. So Holly, welcome to How I Made It Through. And I'm just really looking forward to sharing our stories and just talking about your life and what you've been through.
Well, thank you for having me, Bernadette. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we did just recently meet, and we just started talking, and there were so many things. We were talking about your NDE, but we were also talking about who you are as a person and your whole kind of your life journey. And I would love to just have you share just a little bit about who you are and what changed about you as you well, a little bit about who you are, and then you can share your near-death experience, and then we'll chat some more.
Oh, sure. Happy to. Well, first of all, I'm a mom and a wife. I was also raised with 8 siblings, so I come from a big family. My husband and I, between us, have 8 children, and we have 18 grandchildren. So that just gives you that context. I was raised by parents who were both entrepreneurs, so I grew up in that space. And probably just from the age of 12 on up knew that that's what I would do, is not be bossed around, but be the boss, right? So I've had 11 startup companies, and they're not all related or anything. Just I get bored easy, I guess. But usually my companies overlap. Some have been I've had for 20 years, and a lot of times they overlap, and I have sometimes for 4 at a time. So just that's why I would say I'm a serial entrepreneur. I like entrepreneurship, and I love innovation and things. But when I had my experience with what we can talk about here, that changed everything for me, and it shifted everything about
Yeah.
where I'm going, what I'm doing, what my purpose is, how I want that to look, how I want my future. When
Mhm.
you're faced with the brink of death, it just changes the way you look at things.
Yeah. It is such, when we have these spiritually transformative experiences, and you have had a near death experience, there is our life before and then our life after. And
Yeah.
it's just an amazing thing. And yours, I know, so many of us, COVID was a very pivotal time in our lives because the world shut down. And for you, though, it became something much greater. Can you share your story about your COVID journey?
Yeah, I would love to. Well, it all started, and I got COVID, obviously. And I want to just say everyone in the whole world somehow suffered from COVID. I'm not special in that fact. And a lot of us know people that died. And I've carried a lot of survivor's guilt for that, because there's no real reason medically that I should have survived. I went to a conference and got COVID there, and I was home for a week fighting it, really, really sick. I'm more of a natural healer, so I wasn't excited to have to think about going to the hospital. Plus, there were so many scary stories out there. This was fall of 2021. So we were a little educated by then about what was going on. Things had just started opening back up. That's why I went to an event and flew on an airplane. And I think about all the people I infected on that airplane coming home, because I ended up with a Delta version. And that makes me really sad, because I know how sick I was. So after a week, my oxygen plummeted. It was 63. I don't even think I had anything to check it. So I had no idea that whole week. I just didn't know. And I woke my husband up, and I just intuitively knew I was in trouble. I said, we've got to get to the hospital now. I feel like I have an elephant on my chest and I can't breathe. So he drops me. He had COVID. I gave it to him. He was about 2 days behind me in the whole process. And he drove us there. I don't know how, because we were scared to even call an ambulance. I mean, we had people leaving food. We were in a fifth wheel waiting for our house to close. And we were staying behind my dad's house in our fifth wheel. And they just dropped food off at the steps. We wouldn't even open the door or talk to anybody, personally. And so we didn't call an ambulance. He got us there. And he said by the time he dropped me off in the front and went and parked, we all know how slow the ERs are. He came to the front door, and because he had COVID, they wouldn't let him come in. They already had me upstairs in the ICU by the time he was parked. So they knew it was serious. My oxygen was 63 when I walked in. And for about 4 days, I think I must have stated I didn't want to be intubated if they brought that up, because that scared me. We kind of all knew that when that happened, that's just the end, right? So after 4 days, my sister started, intuitively, they knew that I needed someone there. They would allow, at that time, thank heavens, they saved my life by being there. I really believe that. They would let one person every 24 hours come and stay in the hospital with us. And so they took 24-hour shifts, my two younger sisters. Other people would take shifts here and there, not knowing I was going to end up being in the hospital for 70 days. So my first intubation was day 4. They put me on a ventilator. I was on a ventilator 2 different times and a trach. So a total of 52 days I was on a ventilator. I was in an induced, paralyzed or not, coma off and on for 32 of those days, and I was on a feeding tube for 63. I got sepsis while I was in there, a couple other life-threatening infections that they thought would take me out. And during that time, I had many out-of-body experiences. I had a spiritual transformation experience, and I had an NDE, which is a near-death experience. And I feel really blessed that I was able to experience all of those, because I didn't even know for probably 2 years there was a difference. I had no idea. I just didn't study that. I had listened to near-death experiences before this all happened. I knew they were out there, but I just hadn't studied it. It just wasn't in my awareness. And so I really didn't know what had happened. I knew something had happened, but I wasn't sure what. So what else would you like to know?
Well, I think, could you explain what that near-death experience felt like? What did you experience in that particular moment, or in those moments? What was it like?
Yeah. Well, so the near death happened in between the out of body and the spiritual. It was in between that, and of course, I was at my worst. It happened, I know specifically, in between the 2 intubations. So I traveled in my bed on a lot of these journeys. It's kind of funny to talk about it now, because it's like there's a chapter coming in my book that says me in my bed. That's a chapter, because we went everywhere together. And I think that I thought if I left my body, which was in the bed and couldn't leave, that I might not get it back. So there must have been some kind of an underlying fear going on there. So this particular incident, I was going down a hallway, and I was intubated, but when I was going down the hallway, I was not, because I remember kind of almost sitting up and shaking my finger at the receptionist. And I said, I rescind my DNR, which is do not resuscitate, which if you think about it, for COVID, it's a little bit different. It's not like you got in a car accident, you're on life support because, you might die from injuries. You had COVID. And at that time, still, nobody really knows. Nobody knows how really the fix for it. And so you're on a ventilator for that reason. So it was just kind of funny that I would do that. And I think it's interesting, a couple things to comment about near-death experiences too. I think God shows us what we can believe, what we can know, or how we believe something, because so many stories, there's some similarities, but I believe people see what they're going to be able to understand. And so I'm going down this hallway. There's other beds also accompanying me down the hallway, which I think were other people dying in the hospital. There was half of them dying when I was in there. And we get to this place that I'm going to say was a stadium type thing with the boxes up above, sky boxes. And so all the people in the beds got the sky boxes because we were in beds. And then I remember not being in the bed anymore. It was almost like a twinkle. It was like, oh, and now I'm here. And there I ended up being in this, I still say stadium, but it was just this big, huge open place with tons and tons of people. And everyone's in white or bright, bright lighter colors. I'm looking around and no one's sitting, and they're floating. I could see feet. So I remember just thinking that was a little odd, but I didn't care because the space that I came from to where I was felt so good. There was no pain. There was no heartaches. It was just pure love. And so as I'm looking around, I'm having conversations and I'm listening and watching conversations of other people that are light speed. They're communicating. No one's talking. So it's through their minds. And you could have a whole conversation and you could have knowing about something instantaneously. You just knew that. You questioned something, you knew it. And I just remember a lot of that going on. And I envisioned this was like a concert. I don't know, maybe that's just how it is every day where I went, but it was so bright. So I could see the people, okay, but there was so much light surrounding everybody and everything everywhere. And I remember seeing these pink rose colored matter that would swirl around with the light, but it would form into a heart and then float off to the left. And that was going on. And then the music started. And the music, it was glorious. It was peaceful, airy. There was singing coming from every direction that I could hear. And it sounded like angels. And I'm sure it was. But I knew I'd never heard those songs before, but I knew the words to every song. And so I love to sing. So I joined right in and started singing, and we just had this great grand experience. And then I ended up, it was like a twinkle again, and I ended up, what I'm going to say my life review, but I didn't have to see any bad. I just saw love, and I just saw caring, and I saw the good that I did. I've done plenty of bad, trust me. And I just didn't have to experience that, because really in the end, everything is about love. And that was what I needed to have in that experience. And that's what I got to see. And I didn't get a choice to come back. There was not that I can recall anyone saying, you can choose to come or stay. I got put back. And I remember it was just again, like a twinkle. It was like an instant. And I was back in my hospital room in my bed. And my sister Jill, that was staying with me, she happened to be there that day. And so I got information, obviously, of what she recalled. And I had an alphabet on the paper, and that's how I communicated because I couldn't talk. And you got to remember, I didn't have, like, at one time, I lost all 5 senses. They would tie your hands to the bed so that you wouldn't pull your ventilator out. Not that I had any desire to do that. So I couldn't touch anything. I had no smell and no taste because of COVID. I am more than legally blind naturally, so without correction, I couldn't see who anyone was unless they were about 8 inches in front of my face. And then they were wearing yellow caps, yellow masks, yellow gowns in my room. And so, like, eyes, it was the only way I could really see. And then the ventilator, for some reason, took 90% of my hearing away. So it sounded like the Charlie Brown school teacher, if you're old enough to remember that. Wah, 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 wah. That's what everybody sounded like. So the fact that it had me and had put me in a coma many of those days was a blessing, because it was scary. It was really scary not to be able to breathe. And the nurses would ask my sister, you sure she wasn't on anxiety medicine before? And they're like, she was drug free when she walked in here. And they said, she's really bad. And I thought, let me take your oxygen away and let's see how you handle it. It's not fun to not be able to breathe. And so that was that. I would love to keep going if I can and just share later how I learned more. Is that okay?
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's an
Okay.
amazing story. So yes, please share
So
more.
I just want to preface, without going into it too much, that 2 years after was the very worst time of my life. You take every bad situation, divorce, whatever I had ever been through in my life, times it by 10, and I don't know if we'd even get close to the horrible place I was in. I had so many relationships, family, siblings, kids jeopardized. You would think you almost died. Everybody wanted you to live, and you lived, and here you are, and now they're all pushing you away. And anyway, there was a lot of really horrible situations. And I prayed every day for those 2 years. I wished I would have. I wanted to. I said, why? My prayer to God was, why would you save me to put me through this hell? And I just didn't know. I just was like, and also in between that, I was doing things that I was told. You know what? I forgot some important parts. Let me back up, because I was told a couple things in the near-death part of that. I was told to start a nonprofit. It was called Adventure Bucket Wish, but I wasn't really given any more direction than that. I was told I had a new business that I had just had the concept of, and the day I found out I had COVID, I pitched this group. They had a billionaire backer, so it was exciting. And I was told not to partner with them, that would not be where to take it. It would take me longer to get this business going, but to partner with that group was not the best situation. So I was working on those during this 2 years as well. Plus, after COVID came the long COVID. And if there's 100 million people suffering from long COVID, which is just starts all kinds of things. So here I went in, no drugs. I walked out on 12. I quickly got off of those, because anything I didn't have to have, I didn't want to take. So I worked really hard for and all the diagnoses started coming: rheumatoid arthritis and pulmonary fibrosis and sleep apnea, and all these things came after. And so I still was sick. And so I was like, nope, these are hard times, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get this nonprofit started. I'm going to get this other business. Within 3 months after I got out of the hospital, still, I think was off oxygen. I was still on oxygen at night. And I incorporated both companies and just kind of kept going through all this trauma and tragedy and everything that was happening. And then 2 years later, I got a hold of my friend who had certified me in hypnosis, and I trusted him. And I said, would you hypnotize me on my near-death experience. I said I had out of body, I had a spiritual, and I had a near-death. But I said I got all those. But for my book that I'm in the process of, I feel like out of integrity, I really want it to be right. I want the story. And so he agreed, and we did this hypnosis session. This was almost better than the near death for me. Because number one, at the end of it, I got to relive the space I shared with earlier. But I was missing. There was a lot missing. So I ended up, he brings me in, and I end up what I call the in-between. So the dark was on my right and the light was on my left. And one of the first things I saw was up on the far, which was on the right, was a mountain with one eye on it. Okay. So I saw that twice, and I remember thinking, that's weird. And then the second time I saw it, I like remember saying to myself, noted, like, you're supposed to see that, but I don't know why. Then there was this entity there that, so in hypnosis, what they do when you want to solve something, a lot of times they have the person that's the problem, whatever, become you so that the hypnotist can talk to them. Well, that's what he did. And I knew he was going to do that. And when you're hypnotized, you can come out anytime. You can open your eyes. I didn't want to. I was like, I asked for this. I wanted this experience. I wasn't afraid of the entity. It didn't feel evil necessarily, just was on that dark side. And so he has the entity become me. And I remember him saying, when I count backwards from 3, 2, 1, and when I say 1, you're going to tell me your name. And for a split second, I remember thinking, am I going to know my name? Like, that was a weird thought to have, but it happened. But I'm thinking that right when he says 3, 2, 1, as soon as he says 1, I just blurt out Darby. And I was like, I don't ever remember hearing that name. I heard it 3 times in the next month, which was really odd. So this entity's name was Darby. From what I gather, from what I know so far, is Darby just wants my light. I don't think there's any connection or relationship other than he can't have the light, he said, and he wanted mine. So he grabbed me, I guess, coming through, and he was hanging on to it. But I remember while he was talking to him, I could feel heat coming and light coming, and it was so bright. And he said, the light's coming to take her, and I'm not going to be able to stop it. And the hypnotist is saying, can you just let her go then? Let her go to the light. And he didn't want to. And then he just finally said, I can't stop it. It's going to take her, and I can't stop it. And so when that happened, he said, well, then will you just let her go? And he finally just kind of was like, yeah. So then I go, and I'm going forward, and I look in front of me, and there's this tree. And that was like the best feeling for me, because my company that's called Retreat R&R, when we were branding it, nobody questioned me. I just said I felt like the logo needed to have a tree in it. And so that's what it does. And the tree was designed, and it came back, and it had 11 leaves and 11 roots on it, which is 1111. I was out of the hospital on 1111. My birthday is 11. So there was a lot of synchronicities there. But for me to see that tree, it was so comforting to know you created that tree in a company that you were told to go do, and you didn't even remember seeing that. So that was the first thing. And then I get over to the light side, and those rose-colored pink hearts now are everywhere. The energy swirling. Oh, okay, let me back up. There was also energy swirling in the in-between, but it wasn't, there was black, but it was like cobalt blue and silver and like other darker colors. But they would do the same thing. They would swirl, and they would make a heart, and then they all would go to the left. Well, of course they went to the left. That was the light. Everyone's attracted to light. And so that's why those were headed, they would want to go to the light as well. And even the entity in the beginning was just like swirling matter. And my hypnotist said, can you bring it together. That's how we figured out it was an entity. It was a person. And he's like, try to hold it there. And so that was happening. So the light swirl was the rose-colored pink. And when I realized those that they were rose-colored pink hearts, I remembered I was told to do that nonprofit called the Venture Bucket Wish Foundation. And when we had our first gala, it was around the holidays, and I made little gift bags for everybody. And I had special circle ornaments made that said hope. And in every bag, I just knew they needed a rose-colored heart in them. And I put it in every bag. So when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, there it is. Again, not remembering that piece. And then there it is. And I did it without even knowing. So that was so powerful for me, because I had just come out of the 2 years of total hell. And I was still pretty tender. I cried every day for 2 years, and I'm not a crier. And I just, God needed me to see that you did this. Like you didn't even remember, and you did this because you were obedient. You did listen. You did follow. And then I was told the message that was, I knew all about the love when I saw the hugging and I saw the life review and I saw all the good, but I didn't get this message. And I do know why. It was love them where they're at. And when I heard that, if I would have had that message earlier, that 2 years, first of all, wouldn't have happened, because it would have changed my response, everything about. And I know I needed those lessons, and I had to go through those hardships to be able to do the philanthropy work and do what I'm creating now with this company, and to be able to have the money to do what I have to do. I wouldn't have had that experience. So awful. I had to sacrifice a couple grandkids because of it, but to help how many other people's sons and grandsons. And it doesn't make it feel okay, but I know that was the experience, and that was the journey I had to have. So now to know that message, love them where they're at, it shifts everything. It changes the way I deal with everything. And if you think about it, you can't change. It takes the judgment away. It just is a different perspective. And anyway, so that when I came out of that, I was so grateful. Hopefully I didn't miss any pieces. Sorry, I still have long COVID.
Yeah, I know you had shared this with me. So I've heard, I heard some of your story before. I think what is coming up for me right now is just how brave you are to share this whole story. It's one of the things that as I talk with people and even sharing my own story, is that these spiritual transformations, these spiritual experiences, the near-death experiences are so different from anything that we normally experience here in our earthly life, that it is hard to share it sometimes, because it is that feeling that that it's not believable, and that and so we tend to not share the whole thing, or just share little parts of it, because we don't want to be judged, on oh, that's her long COVID. That's not real. That's not what happened. That's her long, as in, my story, when my spiritually transformational experience happened when my husband passed away. So that, it's like, oh, that's her grief, And so I think what's so beautiful is sharing this whole story is you just, I'm actually, my crown chakras lit up a little bit. It was just a beautiful story of this really difficult struggle that you went through. This struggle, not only of the physical struggle with COVID, and really that, okay, I almost didn't make it. I went across, and but then to also come back, and it's almost like they gave you a plan to get you to go through an
Mhm.
earthly struggle,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. And when you were
You-
saying about your husband, I was thinking, it reminds me sometimes you have to have the breakdown to have the breakthrough. And I
right,
think for me, I think I got put in a coma because that was the only way I was going to listen. I was
right.
not listening. And I think I've had other people tell me, God probably had to put you still so you get it. And probably,
Yeah, and
but yeah,
I think that that's what's so important about all of us sharing these stories, even if it's really hard for some people to listen to, because they're we are a part of something bigger, and
yeah,
in our culture we don't talk about that. We talk
yeah,
about God. I grew up with a Catholic background, and so my connection with the other side was you could pray, but you weren't getting any answers back. Nobody was giving you information. It was a one-way, a one-way conversation, and to hear the information that they were giving you as you were coming back into your body, and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we don't want you hanging out with this guy for this business. And they were giving you concrete information to go on
yeah.
with your life, which
And
is
and the interesting thing about that, I forgot a big key piece. The other thing the hypnotist told me that was not his words, he said, more will be revealed to you when the time is right. And
yeah,
I can't tell you how much that impacted me and still does, because I'm still getting things.
yes,
Remember those gaps that the whole reason I went to was for those gaps that I knew were missing, but I didn't know what
yes,
they were. I know that I didn't get them all. Like I forgot to say when I came back, remember the alphabet I was saying that I was pointing to spell for my sister? I spelled kidnap. And
yeah,
she said I wanted to throw up. She goes, I left and ran an errand and I couldn't imagine what had happened to you while I was gone. She goes, as soon as you tell me that, I'm like kind of in this freak out mode. And the nurse and doctor walk in to extubate you. And when they took it out, I could talk. Well, there were still spirits in my room, which she was opening drawers and the bathroom door and everything, showing me closets. No one's here, but I realized nobody could see them but me. And they were still
yeah,
in there. But why did I feel kidnapped? Why would I come from this beautiful light place and feel kidnapped? Well, I just figured that out like maybe 2 months ago, that because the entity took me and he wasn't supposed to. I kind of always joked about whoever my
yeah,
guide was probably in training and we all have to learn our job, and he took me and he wasn't supposed to. But when I realized that what had happened was he took me, I never had connected that it was Darby that took me. I just thought he was holding on my light in the in between. But he took me, and I had to have a spiritual intervention to get back, which was
yeah,
that light coming to get me. And it's just, I never could figure out, why am I afraid? I wouldn't be afraid. I was never afraid to die even. But
yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, and it's just even even talking about that, it is it is something that doesn't make sense to when you share that with other people, because
mhm,
we're so we're just so earth, we only know what's here, in this 3D world.
yeah,
And yeah, and that can cause a little bit of anxiety, this idea that, well, wait a minute, there was this entity, but it is just knowing that there's this loving, as you said, um, the when you the first remembrance of your NDE was this incredible love and this incredible um, just love and light, and
yeah,
that is and that's what they sent you back with. They didn't want you to come back with the other part right away. They sent you back with the beauty of, because they needed you uh, to become healthy again, and
yeah.
and that incredible love, um, and a few notes on what you're supposed to do for the next. Well, so how has it this whole experience, how has it changed your life? Uh, we talk about it like not being able to go back. You can't unlearn what you've learned. So how's it changed you?
I feel like it gave me the chance to give people more grace. I probably was a little judgy in things in my life, and um, I look at it differently now. I
Mhm.
think it's just standing back and looking at the bigger picture. Like, I always
Yeah,
was the type of person, if someone came to me, I would always like I put myself in the other person's shoes and give them a perspective from that, because that's usually what we're missing. So I feel like I had that gift. I feel like I had also the gift of knowing before. And the gift of knowing to me is when people ask you, like, how do you know that? I don't know. I just know.
yeah,
I don't have to question when you just know something, right? It's
yeah,
within you. And we all have intuition. Sometimes we
yes,
just don't know how or don't believe that we can tap into it. And so I think those have turned on. I feel like also, after those 2 years, then it was almost like the light came back, the light came on. It
yeah,
was such a dark place to be, and so many lessons in there that I look back and I'm like, okay, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I got those lessons. I'm not grateful for what I went through because I
yeah,
don't want to relive that. I just always pray, whatever lesson I need to get out of this, can I get it quicker? I mean, that's just my,
yeah,
and it's interesting how my prayers over the years have been answered quickly, divorces, things like that. When I need an answer, when I've done everything that I feel like I could and should do, and
mhm,
then it's not working, it's like, I think for me, God He knows I need a quick answer. It's like, this is what I've done. I just lay it all out there, and this is what needs to happen.
mm,
I feel like if it's the right thing, then let this happen. Right? And I've always been like that. And so I think to have that turned on, and I feel like the more I do good and the more I am patient with people and love people where they're at, I get it more. It's like
yeah,
there's a dial, and it's just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna give you a little more then. Okay, you're gonna get a little more then. And I love that. It's like, it's that more will be revealed to you when the time is right. That would drive me absolutely bonkers not knowing. But I
yeah,
think I would have been so overwhelmed with all the information that I wasn't meant to get it all at once. And with the brain fog with long COVID, you just can't retain. You can't hold. Everything's mixed up differently. Everything
yeah,
comes out weird. I know. I can't. I mean, I sold real estate for 20 years, and to find places without GPS, forget it. I mean, I drove by my own house on a busy street that I lived on a corner, and I drove by it a couple times going home.
yeah.
Everything's just jumbled up.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if that answered it, but
No, it definitely did because it is just you look at the world differently, and they are continuing to connect with you. You do have this connection is open now. And it's one of the things that I learned as well is that once you recognize that spirit is there and that we have a deep connection with them, they continue to open the language, they open the conversation up, and you learn the language and how they speak and how to recognize when they're reaching out to you. And I think that is one of the most important parts. And I wanted time goes so quickly on these things, when we get into a conversation. I wanted to share that one of the things that we have in common is that we will both be panelists this summer at the conference, the International Association of Near-Death Study conference, which will be in Chicago at the very end of August, and that it is a gathering of very people who have had amazing spiritual experiences. This is the 50th anniversary, so there is the doctors who actually were the first ones who started to research this idea of near-death experiences will be there, and that is such an amazing thing. But it is also people who are seeking and just wanting to know more, whether they've had a spiritually transformative or near-death experience, there's an awakening in them that they want to know more. And that is why I'm so grateful that you came on. Continuing to share these stories is what helps others to learn. But I also want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit. How can somebody, not only if they wanted to learn more about your experience and wanted to maybe talk to you about that, but about a little bit about your business and how they can connect with you. And I'll make sure all of your info is in the notes after.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thank you. Well, my email is holly@hollyporter.com. And so you can just reach out there on an email. But I'm on all the social media platforms, some of them more than others. I have a presence everywhere, though. And I'd love to hear from people. I feel like I'm on for business podcasts all the time, but really starting to talk about this a little bit more. And it does light me up because I hope people cannot fear death. I mean, that's my main thing. I don't think there's anything to fear. I said the other day that your whole life of moments of good memories and good feelings, add that up, that's like not even touching 1 minute where I was.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a perfect place to end. So thank you, Holly, so much for coming on. And I look forward to getting a chance to see you in person come August. So really looking forward to that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.